Hey guys. Yes, I'm actually back working on radios again. In particular, I want to finish off the Philco 60MB I started working on some months ago. If you recall, I finished recapping it and the radio works. Works fine. But I found some problems along the way. For one, the band switch is not the original. As memory serves, the shaft was bent on it. When I straightened it out, it snapped off, so I had to replace it. And the volume control was shot. And the original filter caps were missing. So instead of being mounted up here, I have one tacked down in here temporarily and one tacked over here. So, I could just put this back in the radio as is, and it would work. But, you know me, I'm crazy, I'm obsessive, whatever. Well, since I started working on this, I came across this, which is a nearly identical Philco 60 chassis. This one's a little bit older revision. It came with the rosette knobs, whereas this guy has the hex, so it's maybe like a year earlier. But pretty darn close. Well, I think this is 100% original. So this has the original tone control, and I think that's the original volume and power switch. If not, at least it's a Philco replacement because it has Philco stamped on it and a Philco part number. And, one other thing is that the bias power resistor here is partially open. This section was still okay, but back in there you see there's a little pink resistor. That was to bypass this open section here. At least I think that's what happens. I know I did some experimenting, because I'm also seeing that there's nothing attached to this lug, and it looks like there might have been originally. So it's been too long since I worked on this. Is one bad thing about leaving projects for so long. Oh, you know what? Now I think I remember. I think the original was bad, and I got this out of another radio, perhaps. And I put that in parallel with this to give me the right value. Well, regardless, I think this one is okay. So I'm going to ohm it out, and if it matches what the original's supposed to be, I think I'll transplant this. Very, very well transplant the tone control, transplant the volume control power switch if it's good, and I want to rebuild these two filter caps. Another issue is that I never completely got all the corrosion off this chassis. I started to, and then let it sit for a while, and it started to come back. So, a little navel jelly there, a little throughout here. I may dab a little metallic paint on there. I don't know. I don't want to go so far as to strip this whole thing down and mask it off and paint it. That seems like overkill. I want to get this thing done. And the dial scale's busted. This radio is badly damaged in shipping, and this got whacked and chipped and broke off. Well, unfortunately, so did this one. So, still in need of one. There are reproductions available, a little pricey, but not critical to the operation of the radio. So, for now, I think I'll just put that on the back burner. Eventually, I'll order one up. Now, one other thing I want to do too, actually two other things. One is once I get this thing up and running again, I want to align it, and I want to use the Hewlett-Packard 3336A that I just picked up and got working. Totally overkill, no question about it, because all you need to align this radio is just a fixed RF generator, but that's kind of why I got this, for aligning AM and FM radios, and I want to give it a shot, so that should be interesting. And this chassis came with a trash speaker. Well, actually, I think it might have been okay before it was shipped, but during shipment, the cone is completely shredded. So I'm going to try my hand at reconing it. Don't need it for this radio because the original speaker is okay. In fact, I don't think I had to do anything to it. The original cone was just fine. But should be a little fun experiment. But I do have to ohm out the output transformer and field coil and make sure that this thing is actually worth reconing. And if it is, here's one of the cones I picked up from Mad Electronics a while ago during my Philco p7o10 restoration project. This is darn near perfect for this rather common size Philco speaker. The only thing you got to do is trim down the outer lip on this just a little bit. I mean, it's so close. And this opening is just about perfect for this spider. I might have to cut that out a little bit. Let's see, does the original cone go under the spider? Well, can't tell. Somebody put some felt over. Oh yeah, that's right. Now I remember. This speaker had me confused. I think this speaker might have been reconed. Because instead of having a spider up on top, like that guy, it's on the bottom, using a more modern style, like a smaller version of one of these. Let's see, from the fragments of the cone, it's hard to look at another speaker. What I'm trying to figure out is how exactly did the old cone attach to the spider? Was it glued underneath, right on the edge? Could I glue it on top? That doesn't matter a whole lot, but the idea is you need to glue this down to the spider while keeping the voice coil that's underneath it perfectly centered in its openings. This is the part that vibrates up and down, which in turn will move this whole cone up and down. You glue down the outer rim of the cone, and it's got a very flexible foam surround on it. So this little bit down here drives the whole thing, and it vibrates up and down. So it'll be a fun little side project while working on this radio. Right now, I want to strip out the stuff I'm hoping to salvage from this and check it out and make sure it's good. I got all the parts out without any trouble. Here's the caps. I just need to ponder how exactly I want to rebuild these. I've got two choices. I've tried them both. Both work fine. One is to cut it right below that seam, or if you're lucky, you might be able to pop this top off and then restuff it from the top down. The trick with that is, if you put in your new little electrolytic cap inside here, through the top, you got to get the leads to go all the way out down through here. So when I've done that, I've taken my new little cap and attached extension wires on and pulled this center bit out, cleaned out the tar gunk in there, and just fed the two wires out the bottom. And to put the cap back on the top, one trick is to take a top of like an orange juice container or a plastic jug, a small plastic cap, like yay big in diameter, and glue it to the bottom of the inside of this top, and then you can just sit it down, or a piece of wood, a piece of cork, whatever, just something so that you can put this top back down onto this metal cylinder and it firmly stays in place. A piece of sponge, I suppose, would work too. And then if you ever need to, you can just pop the top off and get back inside. The other way to do it is to cut it like down here, because when you're going to put it back in the radio and you put this piece of cardboard back over it and put the clamp on it, the seam is invisible. So I'll do one of those two methods. Alright, bias resistor is good, so excellent. Tone control rotates freely, seems to be just fine. Now this is definitely the original. The part number matches the schematic, 335006. This is the right part. Even down to the two little nubs, they match the two holes on the front that lock the control in place, so when you're rotating it, it doesn't slip on you. And the power switch seems to be fine. Very smooth action on the volume control, and when I measure the resistance between the center tap and the outer lug, smooth increase in resistance. My problem is the maximum resistance is about 1.8 meg. The schematic says 0.35 meg, or in other words, considerably less than this. It may have increased over time, maybe from the wiper running, like the carbons been worn away, which cut the resistance down. I don't know, but I'm going to pop it in there and give it a try. I don't think that value of resistance is all that critical. And, you know, I like to be original, and the action on this feels great. And the substitute that I put in here, the shaft is not quite perfect in length. Actually, now I'm remembering. Yeah, I got a control that had a considerably longer shaft and I cut it down. And actually the length on it is okay. It's the shaft itself. It's kind of a universal shaft. It can be knurled or half moon or whatever you need. And it's not quite the same as the real deal. The knob is kind of sloppy on there because these old Philco controls had pretty beefy shafts. So the knob will fit better on this guy. And I think that what I was getting confused about the shaft length is it's because this one's too long. That's a replacement band switch I put on there so you can see that these three are not the right length. Well, if I replace that and replace that, they'll all be the right length. All the knobs will fit on snugly, and I will be happy. I just finished transplanting the power switch and volume control, tone control, and the bias power resistor. And I discovered I made a mistake when I had wired in this replacement tone control. I only put a single capacitor, a switchable 0.015 microfarad. And that's what you see here in the schematic. What I forgot to do was install 0.01 that's always going from that output to ground. So I corrected that when I installed this one. Both capacitors are embedded in this black hot glue. And I have powered the radio up and it's working fine. Now what I am contemplating doing is actually swapping out the tuning capacitor. Now, why would I do that? Well, this one's pretty corroded. And I went through the hassle of getting a rust off of a similar one in a Model 60L in another video series. And that's a pain because these strips here are, I believe, brass. And the rust stripper or naval jelly reacts differently to brass as it does to the steel. And as you're getting rid of the rust, it starts reacting badly with this brass, and it's just a real hassle to deal with. Whereas this one from the donor chassis is corrosion free. Also, when this radio was damaged in shipping, the dial lamp got bent and a bit mangled. I've kind of tried to get it in the right position and straighten it out, but hey, this one's in good all original shape. And it's pretty loose as it is because the mounts are rotted. So all I gotta do is take off 3 screws and disconnect 2 wires, and there we go. Just plop this guy over to here. And while I'm at it, I also was able to repair the dial scale that came with this. This one was also damaged in shipping, and a section of it cracked off. I just took some super glue and put a bead along the back side. And did a halfway decent job of lining it up. I'm sure when it is backlit it'll be somewhat noticeable, but the tuning dial window on this radio is just a small little thing like that, so I don't think it'll be any big deal. Plus, it's better than nothing. Now, I had already written down the dial scale part number from this guy. I had the other broken fragment, and it was, I think, a 2750 27 or 28, something like that. Whereas this is a 27 5000, so they are not the same part number. So I was thinking, well, how different can they be? Well, it turns out not very. I compared them side by side, and made careful note of where the marks are. And if you look closely, like say where it's 60 and 1.7, on this one, those 2 lines pretty much dead on. But on this one, see the 1.7 is off to the right a little bit. And similarly throughout the scale. So Here 2.2 is a little higher than 75, and on here 2.2 is a few ticks higher. So what does all that mean? Well, if I was to just put this dial scale on this tuning capacitor, things would be off. Either the AM or shortwave or both a little bit. But if I transplant it with this capacitor, things may line up alright. I'm not sure where the difference comes from. Is it the tuning capacitor itself, or is it something else like the oscillator coil? I'm not sure. Probably it's the tuning cap. I have to check the part numbers on those as well. But regardless, even if it's off a little bit, I generally tune the radio by ear, not by looking exactly on these tick marks in the dial scale. So I am going to proceed with transplanting this. And that leaves one last thing, which is these capacitors. And I went back and forth, and I have decided I'm not going to restuff them at all. I went through some hassle to find these in the first place, and the radio's already working with them out because I've mounted the caps underneath. So I'm just going to mount them in here just for cosmetics, just like that, because I want to get this done, and nobody would ever know the difference. I've restuffed plenty of caps in the past. I know I'm capable of doing it. I know what's involved with doing it. And if I ever choose to, or somebody else chooses to, stuff them down the road, they certainly can. And I've already altered the original appearance anyways, because I've got some modern metal film blue cap, resistors under here anyways. So I've got a Sprague atom for one, and the other one is this axial guy, or rather radial lead cap. I'm going to try to dig up another Sprague atom. They mount a little more securely. I think they look a little bit better, less conspicuous because it's black. So I'd like to get another one like this and mount it somewhere up in this area. Here's where the originals would have been. I got the tuning cap out easily enough, and I noticed something right away that is different between the two, and that is these two trimmer caps. On this guy, there's an adjustable nut on top, so you can align each side. On this one, they're mounted on the bottom. I don't know how the heck you're supposed to adjust these once it's installed in the radio. I don't know if you can just flip-flop them. No, it doesn't look like it, because one side of the plate goes to these tabs down here, which really go to one side of the plate, so there's no connection to them. And the other side is where it's threaded, so no, you can't flip those around. So, boy, I don't know. I was going to say maybe you can slide a wrench in from the side, but no, because the power transformer's right there. I guess you would adjust these before you install it. That's not for the IF. The IF alignments are all along the back side. One would be the oscillator trimmer, and one is the antenna trimmer. I guess I'll just install it without touching those two and see how it works. I just finished transplanting the tuning cap, so that you can see it's a bit nicer, less grungy than the one that had been in there. And I also cleaned out the bearings and put some new grease in there, and it's turning really nice. I got the new shock mounts under there, so question remaining is, does it work? Now if you hear a really loud hum, it's not the radio, it's actually this PR57 I got. So the only thing I don't like about it is it's got a really loud hum or buzz to it. So if any of you other guys out there have a Suncor PR57, I'm curious to know if yours buzzes with no load, just turning it on. Alright, so let's get this turned on. Now, I don't need an isolation transformer to run this, but it's nice to see how much current it's drawing. Plus, I got the output turned down to about 115. rather than the 125 I get at my outlets. Now the pilot light's not connected up. I'll get to that. That's what these two wires would be going to. Alright, I think I hear something. Yeah. So another tuning dial installed, but I can just turn around the dial and see how it works. Alright. Sounds pretty good.
We are WNWI, Oakland, Chicago.
I don't think I've ever heard of this station before. Huh. Yeah, let's see how the tone control works. So this is in the, I guess you'd say, more treble position. And so there's with the other cap in parallel with it. So you can see it cuts down the high tones. Well, that's not English. It's probably why I never heard of this station before. Polish, maybe? Maybe Ukrainian. Seems to be working just fine with this tuning cap. It's really late at night right now, so I can't crank this up very loud. It's got to be Radio Disney. YouTube's been busting me a bit lately, so I don't want to play that much longer. Hey, I'm sure you guys have heard plenty of things about people, YouTube flagging videos for copyright violations. Well, they've been going through some of my videos that I posted a long time ago. Like, I just got one the other day from a video I did like a year ago. And I just had like 15 seconds of some Fall Out Boy song, and they flagged me. Now, it doesn't mean they take the videos down. They just give you, they say, they say, we think we detected some copyrighted material, and you just acknowledge it, and that's that. But if you were like trying to make money off of it and blatantly using it, then you'd kind of get in trouble. Anyways, so I also got most of the rust off of the chassis. Still some areas over here, but there is one other thing I want to deal with. Just remembered. So tune back into some station. I got some really bad microphonics on this tube. Not so bad on the others. Though I think what happens is when I tap this, it's just vibrating through the whole chassis. This is the one that's really bad. So I've got all the tubes I pulled out of the donor chassis. That is the 75, so it's right before the 42 output. I'm going to swap that out and see if those microphonics get reduced. I found these tubes kind of interesting. So let's see, which is the one that was in there? Gotta be this one, it's slightly warm still. So this seems to be unbranded. It just has 75 on the base. I don't see any other markings. Licensed as indicated on carton or something like that. But, let's check out the structure inside. And now, compare it to this one. Right away we notice that there's a structure down here. And this is an actual Philco, so perhaps that helps stabilize the active tube elements up there. I don't know. When I say microphonics, what that means is when the tube gets vibrated, it goes through and gets picked up and amplified. You may have seen in some of my TVs and the tuners, there's a big lead shield around one of the tubes that is there to prevent it from vibrating. And I haven't checked these tubes. They came out of the donor chassis. They're pretty much all Philcos. And I've noticed that they all have goo around the base. I'm guessing the bases were loose since I put glue on there. Well, it is what it is. better glue than loose base, I suppose. So let's give this guy a try. Turn down this radio so don't get confused by it. Alright, here goes. I think I did test these tubes to start working as a radio, but that was so long ago, I can't quite remember. Definitely don't recommend leaving a project sit for months to the point where you can't remember what you did and what you didn't do. Oh wow, what a difference. They're just gone. Alright, cool. It's good enough for me. I'm not even going to bother testing the tube.
An annual nature to it, and there has to be some security on my side because I make ordinarily instrumental in creating happiness.
She's sounding really good, and I haven't even done an alignment yet.
No, they're going to delay the individual mandate, whether it's 6 weeks.
Teaching young adults, maybe, about marriage in a way that they can
Suit some shortwave. I just have a little like 3-foot antenna right now, so not the greatest setup. Well, at least there's something there. I had a feeling. So what we heard was, this is that the high end of the AM band is also on the low end of the shortwave band, so same station.
Resurrected! Resurrected! The old flesh and bones that went to the earth will never do it.
Alright, there's a time station. 2.5 megahertz maybe? And it's in French. And English. I'll find out for sure once I get an RF generator going, but it looks like if I had this installed it'd be at 3 megahertz. So I don't know if anybody knows if there's one of those time stations at 3 megahertz or not. Well, it's definitely Canada.
8 hours, 14 minutes.
So last night I was putting what I thought would be the final touches on removing rust from the chassis. I used some of this rust stripper on the worst deep pitted areas. Once that was gone, I went over the whole thing with naval gel, got it all nice and clean, washed it down good with some diluted 409, and here it's mostly water with a little bit of 409 left. Got it bone dry, sprayed it down with contact cleaner, and then WD-40. And here it is, about 16 hours later, and it's got a bit of a sheen of rust, even though you can still see some WD-40 on here. Now I know part of it, or at least I think part of it, is from using this rust stripper, which is part hydrochloric acid, part phosphoric acid. I like to use it because it works faster than anything else I've used. For deeply rusted areas, I haven't found anything that works better. But it does seem to affect the metal such that it will get this sheen of rust coming back very quickly. I think it has something to do with the hydrochloric acid affecting the surface of the steel and maybe making it more porous, or some oxygen gets trapped in there or something. I don't know exactly what the chemical process is. However, naval jelly doesn't seem to have that much of an issue. This is just phosphoric acid and some goo. So I've had pretty good luck with just using this or using this after that. But in this case, it got kind of cruddy looking. Now notice over here, it didn't. The difference is in this area, after I got the rust off and got it really dry and clean, I went over it with some simichrome, which would have removed a thin layer of the steel. It's a very mild abrasive, so perhaps I should have done that over there. But something else, some of you guys recommended a product to me the other day called Bow Shield. Well, I did some Googling on it, and I found a place that carries it called the Resistor. All they sell is products for removing rust, converting rust, and inhibiting rust. So I ordered up some products. There's some other ones I'd heard of about in the past too, like this evapor rust. This you can just flat out submerge stuff in it. It uses a process called chelation. I think that's how you pronounce it. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Which is not the same as acid. They say it's safe on plastics and other metals, and perhaps you could even submerge an entire chassis like this in it. I'm not going to go that far, but I have some other rusty things I've been working on that have small pieces that I can certainly try immersing in this stuff. Wasn't too expensive for a gallon. Obviously, for a larger item like an entire chassis, you'd probably need to go like a 5-gallon container of the stuff, and I presume it's reusable. And then here is this, which has some solvents, some oils, and some wax. So this leaves, it's supposed to displace any moisture that might be in there, and then leave a thin coating of wax on it to prevent any oxygen from getting through. So, came in both spray and this little bottle. I figured the bottle would be more convenient for the kind of stuff I do. Like, I don't want to spray this whole thing with this stuff. I just want to get it in certain areas. And I also noticed another product called Fluid Film. Similar idea, but this is water-based, not solvent-based. So, I figured I'd give them both a try and see how they work out. But before I can use either one, I got to get this clean again. So I'm just going to try using the simichrome polish on it, and if that doesn't get it clean, oh well, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. But if it didn't for whatever reason, I would try the naval jelly again. Well, so far so good. I cleaned off the corrosion again in this area and in this area, and then I applied some of the T9, which is like a really fine machine oil, and there's supposed to be wax in it as well. I applied it about 3 hours ago, and it still looks just like I did when I applied it. So, yeah, time will tell. Alright, I'm going to end the video here and hopefully pick up in the next segment with this thing completely rust-free, all the tubes back in and all that, and I'll try out the alignment and reconing that speaker.